Hi, and welcome to the Hancock Creative Podcast. I'm Shawn Hancock.
And I'm Missy Hancock.
And I'm Cory Castoe.
Today we are talking about Fandomania.
Oh, yeah.
And at this moment, Fenton usually says something funny, but he's not doing it today. Okay, so today we're talking to Cory, our friend Cory, who is the biggest fan that I know.
Was that a height joke?
Yeah, I'm not talking about height. Although that's probably still true.
You might be the biggest fan we know.
Yeah. So Cory is a fan of how many things? Movies, comics,
music, comic books,
figurines,
action figures.
Yeah.
Stories, strangers.
Gotta say action figures. So
I collect a lot of strangers.
You do.
Yeah.
That is true.
The big basement.
Okay, so here's my big question for you, Cory. So you can take some time to think about it.
All right.
Although there will be probably dead space if you do. How does being I'm going to call you a mega fan. How's that?
Okay.
Ooh,
That
yeah.
sounds pretty
I'll
good.
accept that.
All right. Okay. So how does being a mega fan, how does that relate to creativity in your life?
I think in my life, I want to celebrate those things that I am a fan of. For instance, music. Rather than just listening to music, I want to make a T-shirt of my favorite band, design my own T-shirt.
Right.
Or comic books. Often people cosplay as their favorite comic book character.
Right.
Yeah.
Creating their own costume or whatever. My wife likes to write fan fiction.
Right.
Yeah. One of our kids are homeschooled, and we have this summer reading challenge with them that they have to read a book. They have to read for 40 minutes a day, but when they finish a book, they have to either write a review about it, make a sculpture or a piece of art about the book, or write their own fan fiction about the book.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's a lot
I'm
of fun.
adopting that. My kids now hate you. More work, but fun work.
Why don't we take something we love and turn it into work? No.
Right.
No, not at all.
That's what we should do, actually. Okay, so you had mentioned cosplay. Let's talk about that for a second. Have you ever dressed up and gone to a convention of any kind?
I haven't gone to a convention, so to speak, but
Yeah.
I've been to Free Comic Book Day. Probably the story that sticks out farthest in my mind is in the second grade, my teacher told us, okay, guys, next Tuesday, we're all going to come dressed to school as our favorite book characters. So make your costumes, bring your books, and we'll read the books in class. And you can talk about who you're dressed up as.
Right.
So that next Tuesday, or the night before, I worked so hard to make this cardboard box, draw a picture of Little Bear. Little Bear's face on the
Nice.
cardboard box,
Yeah.
and cut out holes for the eyes and a hole for the nose and the mouth.
Yeah.
And then my mom put black grease paint on my nose so that when I put the box on top of my head, it looked like a little bear nose. And so I got my book, and that day I think I was late to school every day of my entire school career. But I was late, and so I was running into the door with this box on my head and Little Bear book in my arm, into the school assembly, and I walk in and nobody is dressed up.
Oh.
And I thought, well, maybe they're just dressed as their favorite characters, and it just doesn't seem
They're just normal.
right. Yeah, they're just normal
characters.
characters. Then I thought, well, no, these kids are all dressed like they normally dress. Maybe it's just my class. Maybe it's just my class that's doing it. So I get to my class, and everyone there is dressed normal. And my teacher looks at me with this bewildered look and says, Cory, what are you doing? What are you wearing?
Oh my gosh.
And I said, but it's dress as your favorite book character day. I mean, you told us last week. She said, I've never said anything like that.
What?
So I don't know. That was my first cosplay experience.
Did that never nobody ever
I've
figured that
never
out?
solved it. No. Maybe it was from an alternate reality. I don't know.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Your little heart wanted to dress like
Yeah.
the book characters so
I just
badly.
wanted so badly to be Little Bear.
you
That's so
created
funny.
you created an opportunity.
I did.
So you started your fandom young then.
Yeah.
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 So,
I have always loved that about you. It's like anything you or Scout get into, you are into it. Like you love it. You're devoted. You're like, this is the best. And you make everyone else. Well, I don't know how many things you've sucked me into because you loved them so much. And I mean, often I become a fan too. And I love how you guys celebrate. You celebrate things, and you celebrate art, and you celebrate movies and all these things. So it makes me happy.
So would you consider yourself to be an art collector?
I would think so. I mean, there's a really wide array of what could be considered art. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that way too. That all these things, even though they're mass produced, they're still art. I think they're art for the everyday man or whatever, So it's like you don't have to go to a gallery or a museum or whatever to experience art. I mean, and it's everywhere, and it's awesome. Some of the art is absolutely stunning. It's amazing what artists are doing. Comic book artists are doing now. In the 80s, when I was collecting, it was just like, it was good, but it's like not what it is today. I mean, these are like exceptional works of art on comic book covers.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how widely variant covers are used, nowadays. Recently there was a Orphan Black comic, and for the first release they had 26 variants.
Oh my gosh.
One for like each letter of the alphabet.
Whoa.
And I think I got up to 13. Like I wanted to collect them all, but I could only go so far.
That's awesome.
But I mean, like I think there maybe are comic books that have like 50 variant covers,
Yeah.
especially like for like 50th anniversary of this character or whatever.
Well, I love, you always seem to sniff out whatever great fan art there is too. It's like you're into Walking Dead, well then, or no, it wasn't Walking Dead. What was it? It was that movie Mad Max.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like suddenly you guys have this like silk screened awesome print at your house that you got from some.
We got it from Mondo in Austin. There's like a place in Austin that makes their own movie posters and art, and they've also started releasing soundtracks to films. And they'll get like a notable artist in like this group of people in this scene, to design a poster, and then they silk screen it, and then they'll sell like 300 copies. And you have to, if you're not able to purchase it like in their store, you can buy them online, but you have to be ready to go when they go on sale because they sell out pretty quickly.
That's awesome. See, I like it that you know about Mondo. I'm just not in the know.
Recently, they had Becky Cloonan, who's like a notable comic book artist, design one of their posters. I thought that was really exciting.
That's awesome.
So on that note, I always find it fascinating how you're not just into collecting the object itself, or whether it be comics or action figures or whatever. You are into those who make it. Like, the artists' names and the writers and so forth. And I think that's awesome that you keep tabs of that sort of thing, that you're really into every aspect of it. Whereas I think a lot of people, they just sort of ignore who's generating this stuff. It's almost like it's magic. It just appears in the store. And I think it's really incredible that so many artists are being acknowledged and followed, and have fans. There's not really questioning that, I guess. So, apologize for that. I just like to ponder on things right now.
Well, that's everything I've offered today. It's like, I just want to say this is what I think.
Like when I started listening to punk music, I was just instantly enamored, and so I would try to find out all the information I could find about different bands, and then there's different scenes, like what New York punk bands are there, and what Southern California punk bands are there, and what's the difference in the sound, and what bands came first, and what bands were influenced by the older bands, and just on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
And I think that I've found that most recently I've found that quality in comic books, that I want to know who these people are that are created them, what they've worked on before, how they got their start, who works with who. Oftentimes there are artists and writers that work together regardless of what the story is, or what the comic is, or even what the publisher is. For example, there's a writer named Kieran Gillen who often works with a illustrator named Jamie McKelvey, and they've worked together on Marvel Comics and they've worked together on Image Comics. Mm-hmm. And they work so well together that the storytelling goes so well with the illustration, and the illustration really brings out the storytelling. So
yeah,
I don't know, those kind of things really interest me.
That's neat. What would you say is your prized possession of your collection? Can you narrow it down to one?
Or F you if you can't narrow it down to one, don't you think?
Yeah.
Or by
Just
category, by category.
I have like a couple signed comic books that I'm really excited about. One is a Paper Towns #1, like first pressing,
right,
or first printing, that was signed by the writer, the illustrator, the colorist, and the letterer. And I was really excited to find that.
Yeah. What's the scenario that they all signed that?
Seriously,
it came from Midtown Comics in New York, and so I imagine they had like a signing event, and they're all just standing together like signing them. And I bought it on eBay. So
Paper Towns.
Did I say Paper Towns? I meant Paper Girls.
Paper Girls. Okay,
Yeah.
I started to say, what the heck? Did John Green do a comic book?
It was a Paper Girls.
Paper
comic.
Girls.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know you're a huge John Green fan as
yeah,
well. So
I do like John Green.
I was so confused for a moment.
So do you know, I'll put you on the spot, do you know this kind of information for the sculptors that make action figures?
No. I mean,
I'm so disappointed.
Oh my gosh.
I should probably just go back and lie and just say, oh yeah, John,
just make up something.
Right.
Yeah, well, there's only so much information a person can hold in their head.
Yeah.
I know. Dang.
I guess I mean, if I was going to have information about action figures, I know Mondo makes some collectible action figures. Funko that makes the pops, like the smaller figures with the giant head. They make quite a few action figures in addition to those pops.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, probably the most I know about that is just the company that makes them, but not the individual.
Right. Well, that's cool.
There should be more information like that, though.
Yeah. Well, maybe you'll look into that, right?
Probably. I'm gonna stay up till 3:00 this morning.
Probably. Yeah. I didn't know so much, so I got to go find out.
I just remembered another collection that I am really excited about is VHS collecting. I love collecting VHS tapes.
Really?
Yeah, and I found a few people on Instagram that collect VHS tapes, and so it's exciting when I'm scrolling through my feed to see their new cache of tapes that they've collected or they found at a garage sale, or a lot of people trade back and forth online. So
yeah,
that's exciting. And working at the library, they recently decided to get rid of all their VHS tapes, and so it was like manna from heaven. I said, well, I'd be interested in purchasing these. So, if you could let me know how much you want to sell them for, I would be happy to buy them. And they said, well, we'll just give them to you because they're not worth anything. And I rubbed my hands together and thought, that's where you're wrong.
Yeah. That's like our friend Tim has I don't think he intentionally has an 8-track tape collection. But
what's he have, 1,800 things?
Oh my God.
He listens to our podcast, so there's a shout out for
We are
Tim.
not laughing at you. We are celebrating your 8-track collection.
Yeah, no, he does. He's got that because he bought them all to sell them on eBay And so now, since he hasn't sold them yet, he has a nice collection of 8-track tapes.
That's amazing.
Which I think is awesome.
Oh, it is. I have a brief flicker of 8-track from my childhood that, I don't know. I think cassettes had already come into being, but my parents still had an 8-track. And I remember my mom would put in Tom T. Hall. And I would lay on my little blankie and put my little hands under my chin and listen to Tom T. Hall. And do you like true stories? I do. Yeah, I loved it.
I always tried it, and I still don't think I figured out. I always try to figure out how you can jump around like that on the tape.
Yeah.
Do you know how the thing works in there? It's just it's got to be like
wizardry.
Yeah, wizardry to me. So I have a little collection that I told you about, and that is that I started collecting Viewmaster reels, and also the old Victorian cards that you have two pictures side by side, and basically if you cross your eyes you can make a 3D image, but they have these little a viewer, whatever you call that, made out of wood and old stuff.
You put the picture at the very end.
And then the lenses will cross the eyes for you.
That's awesome.
And I saw that you can actually buy glasses that will do that. And so that's kind of cool because there's a lot of nerds like me that make images, 3D images.
I started saying just for sport, he'll sit down and do it. I'm sure there's programs that do it for you, but not my husband. He's sitting there on his computer figuring out how to make it.
In Photoshop, trying to make 3-dimensional images myself, out of a 2-dimensional image, making a 3-dimensional. So I'll spend hours on something ridiculous like that. But it's cool. It's fun. That's what I enjoy. But
yeah, that's my thing.
That's my thing. So, props to all those Viewmaster collectors. There are some actually.
Oh, yeah.
And I think of that, my prize possession would be either the Cinderella Viewmaster or the Snoopy Viewmaster. Red Baron.
Yeah.
Viewmaster that I have.
That's pretty awesome.
So those were cool from my childhood. There's a lot of them that I wish I had. I remember a Huckleberry Hound that I thought was awesome when I was a kid. So I need to go find that one.
Do they have fourth Doctor Who Viewmasters?
No, that would be awesome. I don't know if they do or not.
That seems like to me something that would have come out at the time, but probably not a wide release.
Right. I think that would probably be in England or something. Maybe.
Right. Yeah. Couldn't go to TJ&Y to
no,
pick that
because
up.
When I was a kid, it was the fourth Doctor. I was the only person that knew who he was.
Yeah.
That's not like today.
In your life.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And one time, for whatever reason, I had this conversation with a friend of mine, and you didn't just open up at the time and talk about watching Doctor Who and being a Doctor Who fan. Because nobody knew what you were talking about.
You were in the closet with your Doctor Who.
That's kind of true, because you risked getting the crap beat out of you.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And so I remember talking to a friend, and somehow I discovered, because we were hung out all the time. We're best friends. And we had been for a good year at least. And before we had this conversation, and I was almost floored to find out that he liked Doctor Who as well. So I don't know. That would be awesome. I always felt like Viewmaster sort of could have been better in that respect. I feel like that maybe they could have pursued a lot of different avenues that I think would have been cool, but maybe not. I don't know.
It's like a secret dream of yours to buy Viewmaster and rebirth it, relaunch it.
Well, actually, it does have a relaunch now, so I don't think I need to bother with it.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
they've relaunched themselves, and they have this little. Basically, it's a viewer that you put your iPhone in, and it does look like the glasses I was telling you about, where it basically crosses your eyes to the two images, but not only that, it's not just the viewer, but they sell these discs that you can go on a virtual reality adventure or something.
Oh,
So it's really
wow.
cool. And
That's fun.
It's really neat, and they, you know,
So if you could make your own disc, what would you make it of?
I'd totally do that, man. That would be, I've thought about that.
But I mean, like if you
What
had
would you make it up?
unlimited resources, you could make it about anything. It could be about like something you're a fan of, or it could be something that like no one has experienced or not very many people have
Right.
experienced. What would your Viewmaster slide be of? Or and it could be something completely mundane too. That's just like your thing. A screen printing Viewmaster slide.
Potatoes that look like Jesus.
Yeah, all those things sound awesome. I would. This is just me. I would want to not recreate exactly. I would want to do a miniature like they used to do. You know, they used to have these miniatures and then they photograph them. So I would want to do my own miniature set of something. I'm not sure what it would be. and then I would want to photograph those, you know. And I would like to have more than 3 reels per story. I
Okay.
would think it'd be cool to have a whole, like you'd have enough reels. I don't know how many reels it would take, but basically each slide would be like a frame of a comic book.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could tell a whole story like that, you know, like you would a comic or something.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're talking about ancient technology. I remember one Christmas I got my nieces and nephews a bunch of Viewmasters because I thought these are awesome. Everybody loves Viewmasters. And they couldn't give a shit.
I think some of them got left at the grandparents'
They
house.
just left them behind. That's how much they were into it. And so I was just like, all right, well, you know, I've checked you off the list.
I tried.
You've been disowned.
I think that
I
like
don't know.
there's something about fandoms that I really like, that they appreciate and respect and revere outdated technology.
Yeah, that's
you know?
true. Yeah.
There's like the resurgence of vinyl records in the last probably 10 years.
Right.
You know, and
Yeah.
last year vinyl sold more than CDs did.
Wow.
and
really?
yeah.
I didn't. Wow.
You know, there's Record Store Day, and then in the last probably 2 years, there's been a resurgence of like cassette tape culture, and so now there's a cassette store day where you can go buy special releases of audio cassettes. And you know, my thing with VHS tapes, and I'm not alone. I know that there are people.
Oh yeah.
I'm not surrounded by
Right,
people that love VHS tapes, but there are people out there.
Yeah.
I just really like the idea that there are people that respect something for being interesting and novel, even though it's not state of the art or cutting
Right.
edge, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that most mega fans and even people who are just super, you know, into things are creative people?
I think so. I mean, especially like those people that are into the outdated things.
Mhm.
I think that they're more likely to be creative because maybe there's you're adding your own take to your to the experience of watching a videotape or listening to a vinyl record or audio cassette. I watched a documentary a year or so ago about cassette collectors, and they talked about how, you know, the tracking messes up, or like a scene is like garbled, or if you watch a scene over and over and over again, then that scene will be like worn out and it'll look weird or whatever. But that was they appreciated that it was adding a new element to this thing that they had watched 1,000 times. And I've had an argument with a friend of mine about audio cassettes, and he says that audio cassettes are worthless because they don't last forever, and then the tape gets like messed up and it comes unwound, and when you have to wind it back, like, or it gets crinkled, like it adds this like distorted noise to the tape, and it's not near the quality of like CD.
Yeah.
But for me, I think like that's my art, is the experience of listening to that, because I've added something to what's already been created, you know?
Yeah.
And when I accidentally like screw up this tape and listen to it, there's not any tape else in the world that will sound exactly like my tape. and no one will be able to experience this Black Sabbath album or whatever the way that I can, because I've done this like thing to it, you know?
Right. Yeah. That's fascinating. So if I'm playing vinyl and then it just goes, it's just like, that's mine.
Yeah.
That's my experience. I'm going to do it again.
I listened to a podcast recently called Song Exploder that they discuss with bands like a specific song and how it came about, and they'll play portions of it and then they play the whole song at the end. And there was one band that for their percussion, they take vinyl albums and they make cut notches in the very end of the album where it just spins around forever, you know? Yeah. And when they cut notches, it makes like a like bump or a knock or whatever. Uh-huh. And they don't know what it's going to sound like when they cut it, you know? I mean, they have no idea. Yeah. But they'll just take whatever that sound they made and loop it, and then like that's their drum track or whatever. And it was really awesome. It was really great.
So
that's
fun.
Cool. I'm gonna have to do that now.
I see fans in two ways. One, I mean, art isn't complete until it has an audience, in my mind. It's like, I mean, I really do feel like that. I mean, I get that a writer can sit down and journal or whatever, and that is them experiencing their art form. And maybe there isn't ever an audience other than that person. But typically, most art, for it to come full cycle, has to have an audience, even if, you know, it's just a few people who celebrate it, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
And so fans, for obvious reasons, play a very important role because they are they complete the circle.
Right. That's
you
true.
know? And so fans are really important. But I've used to think, well, if you spend so much time being a fan, will you make your art? Does being a fan keep people from being artists? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I think that it can. I think you can, you know, listen to music and think, "Wow, that's awesome." I'm not gonna do anything close to that good. So I might as well not even try.
Yeah.
But I think that you just have to have the mindset that you let it influence you to make something new and different, even if it's not. I mean, you can't compare your art to anyone else's art because it's not going to be the same. Yeah. Even if it's the same notes, you're playing the same notes or the same song, it's still completely different. Yeah. You know? And I think there's a Alfred Lord Tennyson quote that's, "I'm a part of everything I've become." And I interpret that to mean that everything that I experience, everything I ever take in is part of me and part of my art, you know, part of what I am offering back to the world.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's how I see fandom is.
So you feel like that you're observing these things or taking in these things is actually a self-expression.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Well, see, I was just thinking, in my arrogant state, I think that I was maybe putting the idea that the completer of the circle isn't as important, the fan isn't as important as the artist. And I don't know that that's true, because you need both for it to work. Yeah. And so maybe, I mean, certainly if someone is called to create, they've got this desire, this burning thing in them that they want to make music or they want to do this or that, and they let themselves be put off, or they don't pursue it and instead just completely throw themselves into fandom, then in that case, yes, they shouldn't do that. They should take time to create. But I'm just babbling.
But I mean, you have to have it to some degree for inspiration. I mean, you can't just always have output.
Oh, no, not at all.
You have to
yeah.
take in.
No, but I just realized that it's like, and this is probably a no-brainer to everyone else in this room and anyone listening, but I was just like, whoa, being a fan is its own very important thing. It's not just like, oh yeah, you got to have your fans for your art. It's like, no, you got to have fans.
Right, yeah.
you know, fans are important. Fans are awesome. And that's their, like you said, their own expression can be.
Yeah. Right. All right, just so we have this, just so that we all know.
Yeah.
Just because this is something that we should all know.
Yeah, okay.
Can you tell them tell me how many graphic novels you have in your collection.
I would venture to guess maybe around 300, 200 or 300.
Wow.
I got this software to catalog all of my graphic novels and comic books, and combined it's like 4,500 different items.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, with your comics.
Right, yeah.
4,500. Wow.
Yeah.
See, I was really impressed when I had 200 comics when I was a kid. Which, hey, that's all right, you know. But this is amazing. What about action figures? Do you know?
I would say probably 100. Maybe between 100 and 200.
All I know is it's a sea of coolness at your house.
That is true.
And everywhere you look, when we go to the Castoe's house, everywhere you look, it's awesome and fun. And and I always like to look, I mean, and you have even more books probably than you have,
Yeah, definitely.
you know, comics and graphic novels. And that's where I always end up. It's like we go to see you and have
Your
dinner,
house-
and I'm just like
your house
sitting
is
in
like
the
a
corner
library.
with a book. But you're a librarian, and we didn't touch on that.
Yeah.
So
I think my wife and I, Scout, have both tried to intentionally like make our house look like the most awesome museum of all time, you know.
and you have succeeded.
I think that I probably have 100 or 200 action figures. My favorite is a Madman action figure, which is kind of a more obscure comic book character, but Vinton and I are both big Madman fans, and the creator, Mike Allred, both fans of his work.
Does he have a drink in his hand?
No, it's not Mad Men.
Not
That's
Mad-
what I was thinking too.
Oh, what is it?
He's like dressed in like all white, and he has a like red lightning bolt on his chest. But
Yeah, I'm so totally out of the know. I'm sorry.
I,
Although I would think a Mad Men action figure would be kind of cool
it'd be interesting. Yeah.
if he had a drink in his hand.
I like collecting kind of, I think just across the board, regardless of if it's a comic book or a movie or a record or action figure. I like collecting things that are kind of weird or novel or obscure. Not like weird, like this weird monster, but like a secretary action figure or something.
Yeah,
something
yeah.
that's just like completely mundane. No one else would ever buy that.
Yeah. And what is it that you have? What's the weirdest one you have?
For an action figure, probably I got a wrestler, this like WCW wrestling action figure out of the dumpster. One day when I went for a walk with Gabriel, and I went home and Googled like what this person looked like, because he had a white like billowy pirate shirt and a curly blonde mullet and fangs.
Whoa.
And I discovered that he was like a vampire wrestler, and then he went on to a successful career in the porn industry. So that's probably my like most bizarre
Most
action
random
figure.
action figure.
Yeah.
And I love that it was originated from a dumpster.
Yeah.
that it's humble beginnings with you. Or,
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, years ago we did a publication called Artbeat, and Cory did an article, a weekly or a monthly article called, wasn't it Cory O's Curiosities?
Yeah.
Cory O's Curiosities. So Cory has always like filled our brains with awesomeness and blown our minds and all these we've always just been in awe of Cory's brain and his magnificent collecting skills and just that he knows about all these things. So he wasn't kidding when he said he collects strangers. And so if you can find him Ghost Pants, right?
Right. Yeah.
On Instagram,
Right.
Ghost Pants.
The last couple years, I don't think I did it last year for my last birthday, but the 2 birthdays before that, I spent the entire day seeing how many pictures I could take with strangers. And I think I've got up to about 50 in one day.
Whoa.
And the best part was that I got pictures with the same 2 guys back to back. I got a picture of 2 guys standing outside a bar in the plaza one year, and then the next year I went back to the plaza around the same time of night and got a picture with the same 2 guys again. I felt like I had reached like lifetime achievement.
Did they remember?
I don't think so. I remember them for sure, but I don't think they remember me. I mean, both times they definitely imbibed quite a bit. So they might not even remember that they took a picture with me.
That's funny.
Yeah.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The awesomeness of Cory Castoe. Thank you so much, Cory, for sitting here and sharing all your awesomeness with us today. Where else can people find you?
You can look me up at readbrave.com, a reading blog that I run with my wife and Vinton. I also do a podcast with Vinton called Read Brave Comics. You can find me on Twitter at Cory Lee himself and on Instagram at Ghost Pants. But the O is a 0, not an O. Ghost Pants.
Nice. Thank you for listening today. Hey, we want you to go to our Pinterest. If you are a Pinterest fanatic like we are, look us up, Hancock Creative Shop, and follow us because we are going to fill your minds with awesome, and your feeds with awesome pictures of awesome things, art and creativity related. So please do that for us. And also, if you've enjoyed this podcast, do us a favor and tell friends about it who are other creative people or people that you know are needing some creative encouragement. Thank you so much for listening. You can buy stuff from us on Etsy. Just look up Hancock Creative Shop at Etsy.com and check out HancockCreativeShop.com. Thank you so much to Vinton at Graphocast.com and to Gabriel at GabrielKnights.bandcamp.com. Thank you for the music, Gabe.
This has been a Graphomania production. If you would like to hear more podcasts, go to graphocast.com, graphocast.com. Follow us on Twitter at Graphocast and like the Graphomania page on Facebook for news and updates.